Hello fellow Earpers and welcome back to my Wynonna Earp recap. Today we're going to talk about episode 205 called Let's Pretend We're Strangers. And for those of you who don't know, this episode was kept from everyone for reviews. I mean, I don't get screeners anyway, but it was said that this is such a big episode with such a big reveal that they didn't want to give it to anyone beforehand to prevent spoilers. So this is kind of the expectation level the whole fandom went into with. I think the whole episode was very gory, like a very nice level of gore, let's say that way, because I like it actually as a part of the whole series that there like this moments of what is going on. So we had like the severed head at the beginning, then the finger, the red smoothie, which was kind of hilarious, also pretty gross, but hilarious. And then we had the whole pen through the hand stabbing thing. So there was a lot of gore going on. Emily Andras said it was the most disgusting episode of the season, so there's not more coming, which is probably a relief for a lot of you out there. Then we've seen like the whole episode start with Wynonna opening the window saying good morning, and you really see how well Melanie Scrofano plays it. So you really see the subtle behavior changes between Wynonna and Wynonna, even though they're both very like quippy and sometimes a bit mean, but you see clearly the difference between Wynonna, who still says things with kind of tough love, and Wynonna, who just wants to hurt people. And then of course we see her almost hurting Waverly, snapping out of it for a second, and then deciding not to hurt Waverly because Doc is coming to pick her up. But this was another very intense Earp Sisters scene, and we've seen quite a few of them in this season already, but of course they're like kind of the main relationship of the whole season or series, to be fair. And it was very nice to see them interact in such an intense situation and like opposite sides at some point. Then I want to talk about Waverly, who's immediately trying to fight. So she's not like the damsel in distress who's waiting for dolls to save her, but she's actually trying to get something to get off that chair. And later on we see her, when Dolls and Lucado started fighting, actually freeing herself, so not waiting for someone to free her, but freeing herself and breaking up the fight with a yay shotgun, to actually remind them that there's something important going on, which is saving Wynonna, which reminds me of a scene in season 1, I think it's episode 4, the whole TikTok episode, where the barber in the mirror tries to kill Wynonna, and you have Dolls and Doc arguing, and she's like stopping and being like, you know what is this is about saving Wynonna, so you cut the crap and we have to move on. And the same thing happened this time. Maybe we're jumping to the scene of the fight between Dolls and Lucado, because I already mentioned it. Lucado's storyline, there's a lot to say about it. I loved Lucado coming back because Kate Drummond is such an incredible actress, and her playing like the mean Snow Queen was really nice. And like this episode we had Lucado kind of like, yes, attacking Dolls, but in the end being a professional agent, because when they're both on the floor and trying to stab each other, you have them stopped by Waverly, and then Lucado's like, okay, what's the situation? Like stopping the whole thing and asking what actually is going on, because she gets that it's important. And then we have the moment where she says again, when Waverly and Doc are going off to search for residues of the demon goo, that they should not touch the goo. And yes, it's a reoccurring joke, but in the end she herself touches the goo because it calls to her, and it makes her look kind of pathetic. And I generally do not really like how they treated the character this season, because she was so powerful, such a kick-ass woman in season 1, and now you've gradually her becoming just this like desperate agent without anyone to back her, who's just mean to people. And I think that's just not the strength you could have gotten out of Agent Lucado. And then you see like kind of a very nice moment for me, which is very like good for the character. is the one where she's looking into Doll's eyes and saying, do you really believe there's kind of a happy end to this? Because she's a realist and has seen this kind of situations with demon possession, and she's like, okay, you know what, we get Wynonna to HQ, they deal with her, but this is not going to end well, and it's probably the realistic approach. And the interesting thing about Dolls is he had this approach in season 1. He sacrificed shorties just to basically see if the demons could leave the Ghost River Triangle, even though he was an important relative of the Earp sisters. And this kind of changed. He became part of the small family they are, and he became more caring about them. But that means he also makes, let's say, interesting decisions as an agent. I mean, he's not really an agent anymore. But in the first season, he would have decided to get Wynonna to HQ and let them deal with it because he would have been loyal to the Black Badge division. But now you see that he's loyal to the Earps and not to the BBD anymore. And then Lucado dies, which is very, very sad because I would have loved to see Kate Drummond a few episodes more. But I kind of predicted that Lucado would probably die in this season. She is the kind of character they can sacrifice because, yes, she's important to the fans, but she's not one of the main characters, so she can be an easy killer for the storyline. And her death, I liked her having this like last heroic moment of telling Dolls to step back, to not get in the way. But I also had the feeling that, yes, she said that her head basically exploded. And they were all a bit like, And just Waverly was like, oh, she was a living human being, but also in a tone that suggested some kind of joke behind it. The situation was dealt with kind of jokey, but also the Earp sisters, or at least Waverly and maybe Doc, and they would have been kind of grossed out by an exploded head. Like, it doesn't seem like they would have just be like, oh, okay, happens. I mean, Waverly was super grossed out by the Reds movie being produced, and I can't see how she's just like, oh, whatever, Lucado's head exploded. So let's jump to the interaction between Wynonna/Gunonna and Nicole, because they clearly have issues. Not just with Gunonna talking to Nicole, but I have the feeling that the goo is not just acting on itself, but kind of taking what it finds inside of people and putting it out there. Like all the darkness it finds inside of people, it throws out there. So I have the feeling that the opinion Gunonna voiced was kind of Wynonna's opinion, not that strong. She probably never voiced it towards Nicole, but she has this idea about Nicole being the one to kind of trap the free bird Waverly, who was freed from Champ, or freed herself from Champ. And we've seen that play out in their interaction quite a few times, so it's going to be interesting how they're actually going to work together, because I'm pretty sure that they have to work together in the next cases, especially in the fight against the Widows. So we're going to see how this is going to go, but I really hope there are better times for Nicole, because she's just been getting crap all the time. Like, yes, the whole Gooverly situation, then Wynonna's on her case, then she has the whole Tucker thing going on, and she gets thrown around a lot, and she doesn't really get to shoot things. So I really want her to be badass, and maybe her to just decide taking action. She did that when she took Tucker into custody, but the problem was that he got out very quickly, so this was not really a success story. Jeremy is the next in my notes, and everyone knows I'm in love with Jeremy, and I talk about him even though his role is not that big. He's a genius. I love him. He just licked the plate, which was weirdly attractive, but anyway, and he found out that the plate has like different paint with just licking it, which is fun. Also, he loves his own science stuff so much, so his like fake whatever photography thing, he was just like, woo, look at it, this is so fancy. Totally could be me. That's why I love Jeremy. Say it every recap, just bear with me. Then we go on to kind of the finale of the episode, where the firefighter demon hunters come to the homestead. Nicole and Waverly are already in the homestead. The rest of the team comes to the homestead to defeat Miction. the demon. I really like the moment where you see Dolls asking Wynonna if she trusts Doc, but not in a sense of that Dolls doesn't trust Doc, but he actually trusts him. He just wants to remind Wynonna that she does too when he goes to get the suitcase, and that's a very nice moment between those three where you see that they really became a team during the last episodes and the last season. Then we have the whole thing with the demon Miction coming out of Waverly after like a super intense scene between Nicole, Waverly, and Wynonna, which I really like because Nicole still recognized who's Waverly and who's not, and she was about to shoot Wynonna, which is understandable, but she kind of was smart enough to listen to what Waverly was saying and be like, wait, my Waverly would never say that. And then the demon comes out of Waverly, and I was a bit disappointed. This was like the end boss demon out of season 1, and was like, how big? This big? Kind of small worm? I mean, I also loved my own fan theory about it being a giant squid, but that's just me. But I kind of had the feeling, okay, this was such a big thing at the end of the last season. It was like a huge monster. Everyone thought this is gonna come back, and then it's like this big. Disappointing, to be honest. Slightly disappointing. But we dealt with the demon. Now we at least know that there are other things coming. We have the widows. We do have the weirdly attractive firefighters in red coats who have been kind of there trying to fight demons in the triangle for how long? Good question. There's gonna be a lot of fan theory about that because they haven't been there beforehand. What was with the whole Revenant situation where they're just sitting there and waiting? So we see what their deal is actually. We've seen Juan Carlo again, who was as mysterious as ever, and the only thing I specifically want to point out that he's always saying that everyone's got a role to play. So he seems to believe into some kind of prophecy, higher calling, whatever, that makes everyone do what they do, and he's just there to remind them of their role, maybe. I'm not really sure what his role is in this case. Then we have the last way hot scene, which is very sweet because I really like that Nicole can be honest to Waverly and tell her, you know what, I almost shot your sister, without like having to lie about it or being reprimanded about it, because Waverly knows that this was such a high tension situation. But it's very nice that she can say, you know, I almost did it, even though she knows that this would have been wrong in the end. A nice situation. Wynonna's interrupters happens again. These two never gonna get any quiet with Wynonna around. There's clearly an evil plot going on where an anti-lesbian demon is possessing Wynonna to stop them from kissing. You've heard it here first. So we're gonna talk about 206 next weekend. Until then, see each other next week. Very short additional remark in crappy lighting because my uploading doesn't work over 15 minutes. Yes, I changed it in the settings, but with the iPad it's complicated. I did the whole thing about the pregnancy in an extra bit, which you can watch. I put a link somewhere here or in the description. So just so you know, there's an extra video on that.